Welcome to Skytech-Lens. Across Iowa and Indiana, a strange silence has replaced the usual roar of harvesters. Powerful machines sit idle as corn stands tall but nearly worthless. Farmers face a devastating choice: harvest at a loss or let crops rot. Corn prices have collapsed to $3.45 per bushel, threatening generations of livelihoods. Local diners are filled with anxious talk of canceled contracts and a vanished market. On the Mississippi, barge traffic has slowed, and at the Port of New Orleans, ships sit empty as unsold corn spoils. Each week of delay deepens losses, pushing rural communities toward financial ruin. The silent fields are a stark symbol of a system in crisis. America's agricultural strength has become its greatest weakness. The crisis began when China, once a top buyer, abruptly halted all U.S. corn orders. Shipments were turned back, contracts vanished, and other nations quickly followed suit. The world market shifted. Buyers now demand clean, traceable, non-GMO products. The U.S., long reliant on GMO crops for efficiency, suddenly found its technology a liability. Consumer pressure and new regulations in Europe, Asia, and Mexico drove the change. Mexico's total ban on GMO corn for human consumption sent shockwaves through the industry. With over 90% of U.S. corn acreage GMO, America was dropped from priority supplier lists. Farmers, encouraged for years to adopt GMOs, now held a product the world didn't want. This wasn't a temporary spat, it was a fundamental misalignment between U.S. production and global demand. The gap had grown too wide to ignore. As global markets shifted, U.S. policies made things worse. Steep tariffs on Chinese-built cargo vessels raised freight costs by 25%, erasing America's price advantage. Container shipping rates to Asia soared, making exports uncompetitive. Then, the U.S. Grain Inspection Service hiked inspection fees by 40% and imposed stricter chemical standards. Shipments failing inspection were stopped, creating new risks for buyers. These policies, meant to protect domestic interests, instead made U.S. corn expensive and unreliable. Farmers were trapped between falling prices and inaccessible export markets. The competitive edge built over decades was dismantled by decisions in Washington. American farmers watched helplessly as their livelihoods eroded. The damage was self-inflicted. While the U.S. stumbled, Canada seized the moment. Free from U.S. tariffs, Canadian exporters signed multi-billion-dollar deals with Japan, South Korea, and the EU. Canadian farmers had invested in non-GMO, sustainable practices, perfectly matching global demand. Manitoba's green-certified corn fetched a premium, and Ontario's prices soared above U.S. benchmarks. Canada's government supported exporters with smart policies and trade agreements, streamlining access to key markets. Agencies provided insurance and helped maintain low-emission certifications. The Canadian flag became a symbol of reliability and sustainability. Canada's rise was no accident. It was the result of foresight and smart strategy. The American crisis reveals a deeper global shift. Clean and traceable food is now the gold standard. Consumers demand to know what's in their food, where it came from, and how it was produced. Concerns about GMOs and pesticides have become official policy in many countries. The U.S., built on industrial efficiency and GMOs, found itself out of sync with global trends. Traceability is now essential. Buyers want proof of origin, organic status, and sustainability. Advanced technologies are required. Suppliers who can't adapt are left behind. International buyers pay premiums for products meeting these standards. America's corn crisis shows what happens when a major producer ignores this fundamental shift. Mexico's ban and Canada's blockchain system highlight the new realities of agriculture. In 2025, Mexico banned GMO corn imports for human consumption, protecting native varieties and asserting food sovereignty. The move closed a critical market to most U.S. corn and inspired similar actions worldwide. Meanwhile, Canada launched Prairie Trace, a blockchain platform tracking every kernel from seed to port. It verifies non-GMO status, sustainability, and carbon footprint, offering buyers full transparency. This technology builds trust and turns marketing claims into verifiable data. Canada's brand is now built on integrity and quality assurance. The U.S. system, opaque and reliant on GMOs, was rejected. In today's food market, trust is the ultimate currency. The numbers tell the story. America's loss is Canada's gain. U.S. corn prices collapsed, ships sat idle, and billions in export revenue vanished. Ethanol plants closed, jobs disappeared, and rural economies suffered. In contrast, Canadian farmers sold premium corn at record prices, signing lucrative export deals. Canada's new crop prices are at least 18% higher than US counterparts. The crisis spread to soybeans, with the US losing key markets in Europe and China. The result? A massive transfer of wealth and market power northward. The cost is measured in lost sales, shuttered plants, and diminished global standing. America's failure to adapt has reshaped the agricultural landscape. The numbers do not lie. The corn crisis is shaking the entire US economy. Dairy and beef sectors face feed shortages and soaring costs, squeezing ranchers and farmers. International buyers now question the sustainability of US meat and dairy, threatening exports. Rural economies are unraveling as farmers stop spending, equipment sales plummet, and small businesses struggle. Banks face rising defaults, risking a regional financial crisis. America's reputation as a reliable food producer is in tatters. The crisis affects trade, diplomacy, and the nation's global image. A failure in one sector has triggered a cascade of consequences across the economy. America stands at a crossroads: recovery or decline. The path to recovery means removing damaging tariffs, lowering inspection fees, and embracing trade facilitation. U.S. agriculture must pivot to sustainable, non-GMO practices and invest in traceability. A national system for transparency and carbon scoring is now essential. Rebuilding trust requires bold reform and a commitment to global standards. The alternative is stagnation, protectionism, outdated practices, and continued loss of market share. Canada and others will keep advancing, locking the U.S. out of key markets. The silent fields of 2025 could become permanent. America must adapt or be left behind. The world is not waiting. Thanks for watching a video. Subscribe to the channel for more updates. Thanks.